And we're live. Hello, citizens, and welcome back to the Comm Relay, which is this week uh, going in the themes of me being sick and the fumes of 3D printing. I literally finished a 3D print like 20 minutes before the show, so I was rushing to clean up the whole thing. Of course, I spilled all of my isopropyl everywhere, so I am marinating right now. But don't worry, the window is open. I cleaned it all up, and I can't smell it, so it's probably fine. So, yeah, as you can tell, I am very congested. So, this week on the Comm Relay, we're going to be talking about I think it was this week or last week, announced changes to item recovery in Star Citizen. If you have not caught that change, I can't blame you. It was posted on Spectrum and nowhere else. So we're going to go over that change. If we get any guests, we are going to... I should switch myself to voice activity on Discord. There we go. If we are going to get any guests, we're going to talk about their thoughts on the matter, and yeah, we'll see. And for my thoughts, maybe you'll find out today. Maybe you'll find out tomorrow in the video, because I wrote a video on it, but I was too sick to record it, so maybe I will record it tomorrow, because I still have sick leave tomorrow, so yeah, there is a plan. There's a semblance of a plan happening somewhere. So yeah, if it feels like I have rushed the preparations for this episode, then yeah, I have. I literally did it 5 minutes ago. So for those of you listening on Spotify or YouTube or on Apple Podcast, I will try, if I cough and sneeze, I will try to edit that out the best I can. No promises, though. Anyway, yeah, exactly. Anyway, to do some housekeeping stuff first, if you would like to join me on the Comm Relay, if you're listening or watching right now, all you have to do is be on the Armor Discord and join me in the waiting room when the show starts, and I will pull you in when I'm ready for you. Number two, the Q&A form is now closed, and there's going to be a video done for that probably next week. So that's going to be Monday the 25th. It's going to be the Q&A video. Also, there is another screenshot contest happening because CAG have given me a ship to go away for Stella Fortuna. So we're doing a race or speed-themed screenshot contest in Star Citizen. The winner gets a Mustang Gamma, so the racing variant, with the Murray Cup paint, along with the Murray Cup suit, racing helmet, and a rifle. So you get an S71 rifle in a sort of yellow green skin. It looks kind of cool, and yeah, it's a Mustang Gamma with LTI. So do submit for that. Links are going to be linked in the descriptions of everything, unless I forget. And did I have any? I forgot if I had any more. Oh, right. I am launching a new show because I've recorded the first but actually second episode on Friday. I am launching a new show that's going to go out on the YouTube channel. It's called Find Your Org, and it's going to be me interviewing organization leaders from Star Citizen about their organization. So on that note, if you have an organization and would like to be featured on the show, do reach out to me. Or if you're a member of an organization that you would like to see featured, tell your leaders to reach out to me, and we will try and set it up. Couple disclaimers on that. I would like to talk to as many organizations as I can, but availability of me and time zones are difficult, so you might have to wait a while. But do reach out to me, and it's going to be first come, first serve. So if you reach out to me now, the sooner I'm going to get to you. I don't have a full disclosure. I don't have a fully developed release schedule for it or anything like that. I have the first but actually second episode edited, and I discovered some issues with how I want the edit to work. So I'm gonna have to do something about it, and I have a plan in motion on what to do. Because the problem basically is that a 30-minute video took me 9 hours to render, and that's not ideal. So yeah. Anyway, sip of medicine. Cheers. And with that being said, let's get right into item recovery. Which reminds me that I forgot to post on the Twitter and on Blue Sky, so I shall do that now. My apologies, folks. Some keyboard clacking ASMR there. Today talking about item recovery. Okay, there we go. So that is posted, and yeah, let's go back to right. So item recovery. So it was last week, March 4th. CAG announced that 4.1 is going to have some changes to item recovery, which is way sooner than anybody expected, because this was like a day before 4.1 went into Evocati PTU, or maybe the day after. And this comes based on a backer pressure or a backer request to be able to recover pledge items, so subscriber store items or event items that are bound to your account. So that's going to be anything you bought from the subscriber store, or anything you got with your subscription, or anything you got out of an event. Up until now, if you died wearing that and you could not recover for your body for whatever reason, you would be losing those items. So with 4.1, they are rolling out the tier 0 out of 3 tiers, tier 0, 1, and 2 of item recovery in Star Citizen. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. So, tier 0. Okay, my apologies. So tier 0 is pretty simple. They are splitting equipment into what's equipped and what's in your inventory. Equipped items is anything that is attached to an item port. What does that mean? So in Star Citizen, armor and equipment is based on item ports. So your character has certain item ports that you can attach items to. Items like undersuits and armor have further item ports for other items. So if you have an item that is equipped, so armor, weapons, consumables, magazines, that is going to be recovered when you respawn. You're already going to have this on you when you respawn, which, and we'll kind of get to the issues with this in a moment, but I see this as a major improvement for one very simple reason, which is no more medical gowns. They're gone. They're not going to be in-game until Tier 1 gets implemented. No more medical gowns, guys. Finally. It's been 2 years of medical gowns everywhere, just stacked. And it's over. And then the second, items in your inventory. So that's stuff that's in your backpack or sort of in your armor, and that will not be recovered with you. But, so that will not be recovered, and it will be lootable, while equipped items will not be lootable. So essentially, you won't be able to loot armor and weapons off of players anymore. The exception here is that you will be able to loot magazines. So you can still, if you're in a firefight, you can still pick up some ammo out of other players, which makes sense to me. So, what are the problems with this? Because there's quite a lot of uproar in the community about how this Tier 0 implementation is going to look like. And I think the main reason why a lot of people are upset is because it very much came out of nowhere. Like, oh, yeah, full loot, and suddenly we're basically no loot. Because you can't loot armors anymore, you can't loot weapons anymore, and apparently a lot of people like that aspect of Star Citizen where you can loot armor from players. Now, my counter argument to that is, given the inability to recover subscriber gear and sort of cool gear that you can get from missions and subscriptions and all that stuff, I think there are going to be a lot of people who are not using that sort of cool armor, quote unquote, and cool weapons on them when they are at risk of being killed because they don't want to lose it. So the chance of looting an item that you want is pretty low. Like I don't think you're ever going to be able to get anything interesting off of a player. I don't know, maybe some people see it differently. If I look at the stuff that I usually take with me when I play, I would not loot any of it. It's just basic stuff that you can get in the shop. Maybe if I had a grenade launcher or something on me, where it's a shop limited weapon. Yeah. So, and anyway, my understanding of this, that you will still be able to loot NPCs. So you'll be able to loot NPCs. So if you want to, engage in that full loot aspect of Star Citizen, you can still do it with NPCs, which generally yield more interesting stuff. I mean, you can go to any bunker and pick up a couple LMGs, no problem. So yeah. But the second problem a lot of people have pointed out, and that I think is a major problem with this mechanic, is that it very much removes a lot of the penalties of dying, because you're basically respawning with all of your gear, and you're respawning with all of your gear equipped already. So you're not going to lose you are not even going to lose your magazines, even though they're going to be lootable from your corpse. So essentially, if you have a medical bed nearby, it very much shortens your time to return to combat, and this is going to be a problem, especially in the following scenarios. Number one, contested zones, because those are right inside landing zones in Pyro. So you kill a guy and he will be back in a few minutes in the same gear that you killed him in. The second place where it's going to be a problem is Jump Town, or any other situation where you have an opponent at a ground location, because they're just going to park an Ursa somewhere, the Medivac, and they're just going to respawn indefinitely. They're not going to lose their gear. They're just going to be right back. And with the recent changes to radar detection for ground vehicles, it might actually be pretty difficult to find that Ursa if you don't have air superiority. If you do, it should be pretty easy to just scan around and eventually find it. But if you don't, and there's sort of a pitched battle going on, you might have a problem. And this person is going to be coming in and killing you over and over. And there's nothing that's going to stop them from it besides the jog from their Nursa to your location. And I also see this as a problem where not necessarily where you're trying to control a location like Jumptown or the Detour outposts, but also just generally, if someone wants to be a nuisance, they can just park a Nursa somewhere and pick fights with pretty much anyone without any consequences. Like if you wanted to camp a trading outpost, all you really have to do is just park a Nursa somewhere nearby and just try to fight people. And if someone kills you, you're back in 5 minutes. And the final area where I think is going to be a problem is any kind of a boarding action where you're trying to board a enemy capital ship. And this really only applies to the 890, the Carrack, and the Polaris, fortunately, because the defending team essentially will be able to respawn indefinitely until the medical bay is captured, at which point it just becomes we have to leave a guy here with a crate of ammo just to shoot anybody who crawls out of that bed. And that way you're kind of spawn locking these guys. So that's the problems I see, because we still don't have a way to hack into a medical bed and clear the respawn list. So they're just going to be coming right back at you, which is going to be very annoying. But I figure that's a pretty rare scenario anyway. But for the most part, it's going to be very, very annoying for contested zones, because you can just have, let's say you're trying to do a contested zone with a group, and there's just a guy in the base undersuit and a pistol just brute forcing it. And this guy he's not going to be much of a threat if you guys are properly equipped, but it's going to be annoying when he's coming back every 5 minutes and taking shots at you. So, and it's not costing him anything. So, problematic. But I figure, you can still, loot inventory contents from people. So that sort of, at least in my point of view, retains the more interesting side of looting. Yes, you can't loot armor and weapons off of people, but they might have something interesting in their backpack, especially if it's a hotspot area. If maybe you ambushed someone in a cave while they were mining, they might have some hand minables on them. You never know. And contested zones, they might have some interesting loot, because if you, for example, if you found a weapon and you put it in your backpack, that's going to be lootable. So so that's tier 0, which is kind of a major shift in how item recovery works. For me personally, I like the idea of this. I like that I am not going to be, and I think this is the case for most people in Star Citizen, 90% of the time I die, it's due to a bug. And then I have to respawn, re-equip, and just, I have to have 20 copies of every armor just in case. And then the game eats a bunch of them for no reason. This way I can maybe have 2 at each location in case the game eats a part, so I need a replacement, or I lose it in some other way. Makes sense to me. But moving on to tier 1 and tier 2, where where it finally sort of gets a more fleshed out implementation, let's say. So Tier 1 is introducing a couple features. And keep in mind, Tier 0, this is automatic. Like, if you equip something, that will be recovered with you. In Tier 1, or starting with Tier 1, you will have to register your equipment. Who is... Okay, that was weird. And Tier 1, you will have to register your gear. And currently this is worded as the equipped items. So you'll... Okay, getting too far ahead of myself. So you'll be able to register your personal loadout and your ship and interior. So they're tying this to insurance, which is great. So you'll be able to like recover stuff that was registered via a terminal, and they're saying you'll be able to register your gear and ships at kiosks or ASAP terminals. So I'm assuming ships you're going to register at the ASAP terminal, and gear, I think they might add some different kiosk for it, or maybe they are just going to add it into like the inventory access kiosks. We shall see. Now, so you actively have to register what you have equipped. So maybe, and I'm assuming it's going to cost some amount of money to do this, or some amount of money to do the recovery. And then if you die and you lose those items, you'll be able to recover them from that same kiosk. So I'm guessing it's going to cost some money to do that recovery. However, the two more important changes is, number one, you will no longer respawn with your gear. So you will need to actually go somewhere and kind of do a claim. So, and hopefully, and they mentioned it specifically in the post that they want to create a button that's going to allow you to auto-equip a loadout at that location, which would be very cool. The interesting bit is that they want to remove the ability to backspace out of dangerous scenarios as a way to retain gear. And I am very curious to how that system is going to work, because how does it determine that you're in a dangerous scenario? It can determine like, oh yeah, you're in combat, so that's a dangerous scenario, so you can't backspace. But what if I am in a bunker and I fall through the floor? So I am in combat, but I've fallen through the floor. But I guess maybe that's like not an afterthought, but maybe it's like an acceptable loss for them, I figure. Or maybe they're going to fix falling through the floor. And the other important change is that you'll be able to loot stuff again. But as soon as that item is reclaimed, there's a timer on that item that you looted. And this is the part where it stops making sense. A timer starts, and it's a dead man's switch. And once that timer runs out, that item becomes unusable. So let's say you shoot a guy and you loot his gun, he respawns, goes to the terminal, and he clicks claim. You take his gun and you want to use it, and you now have X amount of time before it stops working. And we'll see if they will give you some kind of a display of how much time you have left, or if it's just going to be like not working anymore. And that brings a couple of questions. Number one, if I loot armor and I equip it and that timer runs out, what's going to happen? Is it just going to fall off? You know, like what's going to happen with it? Also, the other bit that doesn't make sense is, how does it become, like, how does it know to become unusable? Like, it's pretty immersion breaking. And so once that dead man switch triggers and the item is bricked, as they call it, you can't use it, but you can still sell it. So I guess if you're like looting to gain money, you can still sell that item if you want. And that brings us to tier 2, which introduces crafting to this, where essentially once a item is bricked, you can either sell it, or you can dismantle it for materials, or you can restore it to make it usable again and make it your own. So essentially what it creates is, or what it does, it allows you to have a way to legalize or launder stolen items and make them usable, make them your own, which I guess sort of re-enables that theft and piracy gameplay of equipment and ships, which, for a final implementation, it makes a lot of sense. Now, this is great. TLDR, this is great. But actually, no. So, couple questions for this, as we're sort of out of the door of explaining what the different tiers are. Question number 1. Why tier 0? Why does tier 0 work this way? Why couldn't we have... Yes, you respawn with your gear, but you are still lootable. Simple answer, CHG are worried about item duplication. Now, they are, especially in the last, I would say, year, they were very concerned and paying a lot of attention to item duplication, commodity duplication, all of these duplication exploits. And, for like commodities and trading stuff where people can make millions upon millions of credits within hours, that seems reasonable. But for armor, where the sale price of looted armor is anywhere between 10 and 75% of the original purchase price, I don't think it's that big of a problem. And hello, Pacey. So I don't think it's that big of a problem with item duplication in terms of armors, at the very least. So I think they could have just left everything lootable in the first place, and I don't think it would be that big of a problem. Obviously, someone would be very smart, and they would just backspace in their hangar repeatedly and just go in, loot their corpse, and have a million sets of armor, which is going to be a major database problem. But I don't think they could make like a significant amount of money. Then again, knowing some people in the community, they would try very hard to make 1 billion credits with this. So, very well. Maybe tier 0 makes sense. But moving on to tier 1 and tier 2, this bricked mechanic. I see what they are trying to do. It's an anti-duplication measure, right? So you can't have 2 items from one, and then they're kind of extending it in tier 2 with crafting, where yes, you can make this item usable, but you're going to spend some resources. So while yes, you now have 2 items, but you also in theory spent 2 items worth of resources to have 2 items, is I think the logic there. But the general idea of the bricked items, I don't like how it's worded. I understand that, mechanically it's done to prevent duping, which is fine, which is fair, very well, might as well. But I feel like this... Like, how does an item know it is bricked? Does every item in the verse have a signal receiver that just tells it not to work. It's just like, it's not realistic. And I know realism doesn't really matter, but I would like to see this explained in some way that makes sense. And also, even if you explain it, like, how do you make a t-shirt not work? You know, for guns, like, you know, mechanical stuff, like guns, tools, that kind of stuff, like, yeah, there is a computer in there and it just stopped working. Like, it just says, nope, not gonna work. Fair. But for, like, armor, you know, apparel, clothing, like, how does this work? Like, can you no longer put the armor on? Like, I understand that, like, a lot of armor in Star Citizen is gonna have electronic components in it that you could disable with this, but still, you can, like, still put it on. And it's still gonna be in armor. Like, maybe you're not gonna have, like, thrusters on it because the computer doesn't work anymore, or maybe you're not gonna have a, you know, visor display because the computer is off, but it's still armor. So, yeah. So how would I do this? And this is really the only thing I would replace about this whole mechanic is don't make looted items non-functional after they are claimed. Mark them as stolen. Now, stolen items, because I think it's realistic that, oh, there is a serial number on this item. So, you know, you can search it by serial number. You can use stolen items, you can wear stolen items, but if you want to sell stolen items, there's only going to be a limited number of shops that are going to buy them, and they're going to buy them for a discounted price because the item is stolen and they have to launder that item. And if you get caught by the authorities while carrying or wearing a stolen item, that's a crime. You have stolen goods on you, so they are going to seize that from you. How does this change anything? Very simple. First of all, it retains the element of looting, and it gives you, and sort of retains the reason to loot, to gain items that you can use. It makes it a high-risk gameplay, because if the item is bricked and you can't use it, there's no risk in having it. You just sell it. But, you know, let's say you loot like a very high-tier weapon off of someone. And obviously you want to use it because it's a very high-tier weapon. But now you can't because it's bricked. But if it's marked as stolen instead of bricked, you can still use it, and as long as you manage to stay out of the way for law enforcement, it's gonna be okay. Like, you're not gonna, like, yes, you are running the risk of, yep, if I get caught, they're gonna take this away from me. But if you manage to not get caught, you know, high risk, high reward. We're coming back to that. Now, the problem with this, well, this is a great idea, and, you know, we would still retain you can use crafting at tier 2 to launder the item and make it your own, so it's no longer stolen. But what is the problem with this? So, thank you, crew. It is a brilliant idea on paper, but it has a major flaw. The major flaw is that what decides, or how do you decide who's the authority, who's going to seize this from you? So if you're like in Stanton or in Terra, makes sense. It's the UEE, they patrol the advocacy, there's local law enforcement, they patrol, they scan you, they see like, oh, this guy has stolen goods. And it is reasonable to believe that, you know, these guys will have some kind of a database of stolen goods. And if they find it on you, they're going to seize it. Things get a little more complicated in Pyro, or in Nyx, or any other lawless place. Who is, and this actually goes back all the way to ship insurance. In Pyro, who is the insurance agency? Because if you're a resident of Pyro, no Stanton insurance company is going to give you insurance. So how is this going to work in lawless systems? Because working insurance and working item recovery sort of implies an existing legal system based on which you can claim that you lost something. Maybe there's going to be like a Pyro version where like, yeah, I will secure a replacement for your items if you lose them. Wink. Just don't ask where they came from. Maybe that's going to be the way. So, but that kind of brings us to, fine, let's say there's that kind of insurance. So who is the authority that decides which item is stolen where? Because you kind of have to assume. Exactly. So you would need jurisdictions for insurance and for goods. So that would be the extension of this, where, yep, if you insure an item in the UAE, it is going to be seized if it's found in the UAE. And you still like get the recovery even if you like lose it outside of the UAE. Or maybe, you know, they did say there's going to be, and this was before the Citizen Con insurance talk, but they eventually said you'll be able to insure your items to be, you know, inside lawful areas, inside unclaimed areas, inside unlawful areas. So maybe they will introduce some kind of that into item recovery, but I think it's just going to be one payment and like, yeah, you're covered everywhere. But that would introduce I would call this the Skyrim criminal gameplay mechanic, where you do crime in one jurisdiction and to escape consequences you go to a different jurisdiction. So you go rob a bunch of people in Stanton. Obviously, if you stay in Stanton with that looted stuff or stolen stuff, eventually the authorities are going to catch you or scan you, and they will find it and they will take it away from you. So you go to Pyro, and now you have options. Now you can sell this, or you can use craft. Like if there's something good in there, you can use crafting to make it your own, or you can dismantle it for components, and it gives you options. Or, you know, you do nothing, you forget about it, you go back to Stanton, get scanned out of the gate. Oh, you have some armor that was reported stolen. We're going to be seizing that, and you are going to prison, sir. So, and then, you know, in Pyro, you would have some kind of an insurance agency where this guy would recover it for you or would give you a replacement. In Nyx, it would be some person on Levski. And then you would have areas where you don't have this service, you know, completely unclaimed systems or Van Duel systems where there is no one to register with because it's completely uninhabited. But if you have a registration somewhere else, yeah. Now, does this fix duplication? No. Because once you can craft and you know, through that, make the item your own, you have essentially duplicated item. But like I said a moment ago, you have expended resources to do so. So technically it's okay because you have not created an item out of nothing. You have stolen it and you have laundered it. With which a lot of people had a concern that this is going to kill crafting. And my question is why? You're literally using crafting to do this. And I'm assuming it's not going to be like anybody can do this. I think it's going to have to be like someone who has that specific item blueprint very heavily researched to where they're able to, you know, fake a serial number. And the way they could actually do this in a way that's going to very interestingly get around duplication is, oh, you have to dismantle X items of this tier to be able to legitimize a stolen item of that tier. So like, let's say you steal a multi-tool, that's a tier 1 multi-tool, and you want to make it your own. So for you to do that, and this is an example, you have to have had dismantled, I don't know, 5 tier 1 multi-tools. At which point, you have taken 5 of those items out of circulation to essentially add one, which seems pretty fair to me. And maybe it's gonna like get more expensive as you progress with tiers and stuff. Would be an interesting way to do it, I think. Paracetamol. Yeah, as you guys can tell, I am very sick, and it's not breaking. I've been sick all week. But anyway, that's item recovery. Is it a big change? Yes, especially with tier 0, especially because it's coming now in 4.1, which I think is the biggest surprise of this. Now, the obvious caveat there is, A, it's tier 0, B, it's still being balanced. I know that, I think it was a morphologist or someone pointed out that people are just gonna, like, grenade launcher meta, because you can just respawn with grenade launcher ammunition. And just go over and over and never run out of ammo. So, because they said that magazines will recover full, so you could just spend 5 out of 6 grenades, reload 5 out of 6, reload 5 out of 6, and you die, and you're back to 3 full magazines. So, and someone pointed this out, I believe Zach Priest from CAG replied that they're looking into ways for certain items not to recover to prevent this exact thing. So they specifically said railgun and grenade launcher ammo. I'm kind of wondering if they maybe might even go for grenade launchers and railguns on their own as well, because that's a non-buyable high tier, let's call it, item. So yeah, so subject to change, subject to balancing. Now, the biggest problem that I see with this is that CAG said no more tier 0. And they are breaking that promise immediately after saying it. Well, 6 months after saying that. Now, that wouldn't be a problem because this does introduce a pretty useful system in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion. I think, and purely numbers-wise, if people no longer have to buy 20 sets of armor, that's, 20-ish less database records per player. And I think that might help with database performance and items not being eaten by the game every once in a while. I might be wrong, I might be right. And 2, it fixes item recovery, which is nice. I like that it fixes that, and maybe we're going to see some more interesting armors, and we're going to see more of the subscriber stuff. Because until this, the only way to recover subscriber items or event items was to reset your account or wait for a patch. Now, is this the best solution? Long-term, no, but it's not a long-term solution. There's going to be some follow-on tier 1 and tier 2. We don't know when. I think it's going to be at least a year. Because it depends on insurance features, and insurance features are pretty far off. Now, they could have done the naive solution to this problem, which I think would be preferable for a lot of people, which is just sort of essentially skip tier 1 or tier 0 and just give us a terminal where I can rebuy subscriber gear, or even rebuy what I had equipped on me, and sort of have it. Yes, it's going to be automatically registered to you, but you still have to go to a place. It'd be like, yep, rebuy this equipment, and that's gonna not gonna make it instant. B, it's gonna cost some money, so there's gonna be some level of punishment to this, and it's gonna take some time. So that would be the better tier 0 implementation, I think. But I believe there might be some internal blocker to this for example, they don't want to be adding more kiosks right now, or they just don't have the capacity to do that, or maybe they don't know how to, or don't have the ability to persist what you had equipped and then display it on a terminal. Then at the same time, that would be exploitable where, yeah, like because you can't buy certain equipment in some places. So how would it get there? Whichever you look at this, it's going to be immersion breaking. And that kind of brings me to the final point, which I actually am going to mention in the video tomorrow as well. Why is this immersion breaking? Very simple answer. Because item recovery and item insurance is not actually about sort of providing the ability to recover your equipment. Like, yes, that's what it does. That's the symptom, but that's not the cause. The reason they're doing this is because they want to prevent item duplication, which I don't believe was that big of a problem. Especially not that big of a problem where it would warrant this much effort to fix. But who knows? I might be wrong. But yeah, they're using this to solve a metagame problem, so they're using a metagame solution to prevent item duplication, which I suppose is fair. But yeah, more on that in the video. I'm very much looking forward to how this works out. I am hoping we're gonna see more cool gear, more different stuff, less people running around with just the base white undersuit that you get when you respawn. I am definitely stoked that there are not gonna be hospital gowns laying around everywhere, because those are going to go away with this, presumably. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And yeah, I think that's going to be everything for this show. I'm going to go to sleep. After I edit this, of course. I'm going to put this out right away. So this was the Comm Relay. We stream almost every Sunday. There are some exceptions when I don't stream on Sunday, but I will usually announce that ahead of time at 7 p.m. Central European time. If you want to know when that is in your time zone, go look at Discord or on Twitch. If you would like to talk to me on the Comm Relay, all you have to do is be on the Armory Discord and be here and be in the waiting room when the show starts, and I will pull you in when I'm ready for you. To say again, we have a screenshot contest running right now where you can win a Mustang Gamma with LTI and the Murray Cup skin and the Murray Cup suit, helmet, and rifle. And yeah, if you are in an organization or you're a leader of an organization and you would like to, there we go. There are the bots. Can we moderate this, please? Whatever. Anyway, so when if you're in an organization or you're an organization leader and you would like to be interviewed on my new show, Find Your Org, about your organization and what you do in Star Citizen, reach out to me on Discord or via email, or have your organization leaders reach out to me. And Crew redeemed Show Off a Warhammer Mini. So Crew, would you like to see a Imperial or non-Imperial miniature? Because that's the only two types I have. I will take this moment while I wait for your answer to take my medication. Oh, and I have my shiny coffee mug. Let's see if you'll be able to focus. So you see what that says? It says this coffee tastes like shit. Yeah, and it's a possum, the one from which they make the coffee. Imperial. Okay. Okay. Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna show you a cool one, but I have to get it from the other display case. Where is my guy? Here's my guy. So, are you ready, Crew? I present to you Grimaldus, the Reclusiarch of the Black Templars. And I only grabbed him, but he actually comes with, I think, 3 or 4 servitors that carry his shit. Because why not? He is just very cool. Obviously, that's the current model. So he's still the firstborn in this. Why can it like not focus? Yeah, my camera will not focus that up close, I think. Hold on, will that work? No, it just focuses on my hand. Yeah. But if you because I have a lot of Black Templars. I think I have like 1,500 points of Black Templars right now, but not all of it is painted yet. So, yeah. But so that's the firstborn, Grimaldus, but I believe at some point they will come out with a Primaris version of Grimaldus, because somewhere in the lore it was said, I think it was the 9th edition Codex, I think. It said that he did go through the Rubicon Primaris and he became a Primaris. So I think if he's not going to make an appearance in a story, they might give him a new miniature at some point. And I'm obviously going to get that one as well. Depending on how it looks. But this one very much looks exactly like the cover art for Hellsreach, which is the book in which he's featured, which coincidentally is my favorite Warhammer book. That book is actually how I got introduced to Warhammer, or what kind of. I think I read Horus Heresy before that, and a couple Space Marines battles, but Hellsreach was the one where it got me hooked. Especially if you haven't read it, it's a good read. It's actually a very short book, but he gives a speech to his task force and the Imperial Guard defending the city of Hellsreach. And he says, "This is our city, this is our world. Say it, cry it out, so that the bastards in orbit can hear our fury." And I think that's an absolutely badass move and a badass thing to say. Also, the orcs dropped the cathedral on him and he survived. So, yeah, just a badass motherfucker right there. So yeah, there's your Warhammer Mini crew. I hope that was satisfactory. And yeah, I think we might be able to clip that for TikTok and Instagram where I explain Black Templars. Anyway, and I'm going to leave that in the podcast because why not? Good times. Just a segue into Warhammer lore. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to lean back because being vertical is not very good for me right now. So with that being said, that will be all for today. Thank you all for watching, and thank you all in the chat for talking to me a little bit today. If you have some suggestions for the next episodes, drop them on Discord. I am very interested to see. Like, I want to talk about things that the community is interested in, that they want to talk about, because the show is about talking about things that the community is talking about, and I generally pick stuff that's happening on Spectrum or stuff that I'm interested in, but I would like to hear from you. But yeah, with that being said, that will be all for today. Thank you for watching. Fly safe, and I will see you in the verse. Good night.